Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and we are here again for another Murders at Karlov Manor deck tech for the standard format. And we check this one as somewhat an update of a previous deck tech that I did. I think that was during the Praksha LB1 set. At this one, we'll check on a similar strategy. It's basically like a copycat strategy, which is the Orzhov discard for the MKM standard, which we're going to have somewhat a update with the new cards from the upcoming set. So we're going to check here. We have 25 creatures, a single enchantment, a single instant. We are again a fan of the one-offs. We have 24 lands, 3 planeswalkers, and 6 sorceries, and including these new cards, Call, a Surprise Witness, and Delny. So what will be the main strategy? Of course, we go again with having to disrupt opponents' starting hands with cards like Corrupt Court Official. We also included the new version of discard effect ish, which is a deep covered bat, which we can choose an land card to exile. And of course, we also added a support with the virus beetle. So this is also another effect, or the way that you can have your opponents discard a card. So you will disrupt their hand early on, while also this someone is establishing your board with this Winnie. It's like a Winnie, but with mostly card value. Is that you can have them discard early on, and maybe in the mid game, if they're still having some cards or cards in hand, you can use Extraction Specialist to return those 2 drops that was killed or maybe have traded in combat early on, to return it to have another trigger effect. So the only drawback is that you can not be able to attack or block as long as Extraction Specialist is in play, but it would not really matter here because the aim, of course, is to just have them discard their card and minimize their hand, and maybe disrupt any spells that you might have during your battle. So with this card of the setup, we knew that having also your opponent discard a card will also benefit you. So we have added also the Raven Man. So the Raven Man would be just be a 2-drop also, but its ability with each the beginning of each end step, if a player discarded a card this turn, then you will create a 1/1 black bird creature token with flying and cannot block. So in a way, you can also create an army of your own, which can also deal some chunks of damage, and can be also a good mana sink with this ability that can pay for tap. Each opponent discards a card and activate it only as a sorcery. So with that setup, we have also some ways of creatures that can be sort of sacrificed to discard effect. So one example here is Tenacious Underdog, in which you can just pay this one for its blitz cost, and can also be dropped as a 2-drop, but basically the blitz effect would benefit in such that, for example, you would +1 your Lena of the Veil. You can have your opponent discard a card while you just basically discard Underdog into your graveyard, and then just pay 4 to blitz it later on in the late game. So that way, that setup, we now look at the new card, which we included under the 3-drop scenario, which is Delny Streetwise Lookout. So you can see here ability. This is a 3 mana cost with 2 color mana of any color or colorless and 1 white. It has ability that the creatures you control with power 2 or less can be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. It also its ability that if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Now with Delny in play, casting Virus Beetle, also with Corrupt Court Official and Deep Covered Bat, would get you twice the value of its ATB trigger effects. So with Delny, you can basically have them discard 2 cards, or you can get to exile 2 non-land card from your hand as long as the Deep Covered Bat is in the battlefield. So that in a way, you can very significantly have a good card advantage, and basically also having a board advantage, because you basically disrupted a lot. We have benefited twice the value of the typical card that you have in your setup. Now for that additional support, since we've also mentioned the Exchange Specialist, we also added the Graveyard Trespasser. So since this is somewhat a discarded deck, in a typical aggro scenario, you would have, of course, the graveyard. So you have Trespasser to deal with your setup by exiling up to one target card from the graveyard. So if a creature was exiled, you can basically drain him for 1 life and you will gain 1 life. But again, with this kind of discard effects, you can basically have a ways to feed the graveyard trespasser, and at times can also flip into a graveyard glutton whenever a night day bound into night bound scenario arise. And with that, the curve of the deck is basically going also with a lot of board advantage because of its playset of Serra Paragon that is included. So this is a 4 to cast 3/4 flying angel that is ability that once during each of your turns you may cast a permanent spell with mana value 2 or less, or play a land from your graveyard. So if you do it, that permanent gains this ability that whenever it goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, exile it and you will gain 2 life. So in a way, you have a lot of options here with the mastered 2 drops and 3 drops that you can return or you can cast from your graveyard once during each of your turns. So with that 4 drop in the deck, we also included the Sheoldred, which is somewhat a win condition by itself, but it's in a way it can basically somewhat do a clock with opponents that having the draw card effects, in which you will punish them that whenever they draw a card they will lose 2 life. And of course for your side, you can gain 2 life for each card you've drawn from your deck. Now with this setup of the 1-ofs, of course they are just basically act as support for this kind of deck. So I've included only one of the winning announcement. Maybe in the sideboard I would also add an additional, because it's also can produce human tokens and can do anthem effect to your several of your ones here with your discard creatures that can be pumped by this anthem, and also can be used these tokens for the Rite of Oblivion, wherein you can use this one to sacrifice a non-permanent to exile target non-permanent. So this would also be very efficient in sacrificing, in which for also sort of a mini combo for the specialist, wherein you just sacrifice this discard creatures for the right and then use the extra specialist to return them later on. So that is also another option. And for the spot removal that is included is one of Go for the Throat for any relevant threat that could not be dealt with at sorcery speed. Now for the other new card that I've considered here in this deck is the 4 copies of Call a Surprise Witness. So this is just an uncommon from the MKM set, in which you can able to return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with those creature cards probably should be mana value of 3 or less. It goes with the flying counter on it, and then it becomes a spirit in addition to its other types. So more of this, you can basically return a specialist, you can again return Delny, of course the discard effects. Discarded and recovered bats can also be good targets with this card, and of course having the same scenario of having your opponent discard a card from their hand. And of course the last but not the least is your Liliana, wherein you would also have a good Planeswalker that you can +1 at each of your turn to have also an additional discard effect, while also having an edit effect for any relevant threat from your opponent. Now for the land setup, I have several distribution here, including of course the mana fix. So you can check it here. We have 4 copies of the Caves of Koilos, Sarah Shankton of course, and the Manland from Wilds of Eldraine, which is also can be a good threat on its own because of the 1/4 white and black knight per creature token that can have your defending player lose 2 life and you will gain 2 life. That's 4 copies. Of course, additional channel lands, Iganjo and Takinuma, and the other creature source with 1 copy of Murex that can produce Phyrexian Might artifact creatures, and also a lone copy of Hidden Courtyard. This can also be used to activate this one to discover 4, and any good target here can be covered by this discover effect. And lastly are your basic lands that composes the 24 land in total. Average mana value for this deck is 2.58. That goes almost between 2 and 3 mana cost. It's given here because we have a lot of 2 drops and 3 drops in the deck, and the color distribution is somewhat even now with 26 for black and 20 for white, and producers are 18 and 19 basically, which somewhat has halved the dual color requirement of this deck. And last but not the least are your tokens. Bird token from the Ravenman, Human token for the winning announcement, and Braxian Might token from the Mirex. So I guess that's pretty much it. We have an initial deck tech build for the Orzhov discard deck for Borders at Karlov Manor Standard. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this build and any inputs that I meant need to have. And of course, we can have an updated version of this once the new set is fully released and its full spoilers now out for us to check. Again guys, that's pretty much it for the standard deck tech for MKM or Sub Discard. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and see you guys on the next one.